So we're back again to Kyle Hayes, and he's had a bad week in court again and really could be in facing some big trouble.
Yeah, so Kyle Hayes lost his appeal against his dangerous driving conviction. So Kyle Hayes last summer, he was going home from West Cork to Limerick, and he was seen by a Garda patrol officer doing huge speed. It was a 100-kilometre zone and he was caught speeding at 155 kilometres. But during that time, he was also observed overtaking 9 cars, which does sound really extreme. So he was brought to court for dangerous driving, and he, in his case, did say, I accept it was careless, but I don't accept it was dangerous driving. And the judge didn't agree and convicted him, was making comments about how he thinks he's the chosen one, but I'm trying to keep him alive. He could have put other people on the road, himself and his passenger, at risk. So he was convicted of that. And then he was back up then for this appeal. So he was appealing it. And he said in court this week, that he thought it was careless, but he didn't accept that it was dangerous again. And the judge threw it out. So he lost his appeal. So
I mean, the reason we're talking about it, the reason we're doing a podcast on him is, of course, not because of the driving offence, which certainly is a serious offence, but it's also because of his reputation as a GAA star.
Yeah.
And of course, ultimately, the impact that this finding could have on his career.
Yeah, so essentially, it's, as you said, it's not just about the driving offence. It's about the fact that Kyle Hayes is currently on a suspended sentence for violent disorder. So in 2019, he was involved in this incident in a nightclub in Limerick, and it only came to court last year, so 5 years later. And he went to a jury trial. He was accused of assault to a carpenter in the nightclub, and then also violent disorder inside and outside the nightclub. He was acquitted of the assault charge, but found guilty of violent disorder and given a 2-year suspended sentence, which was suspended for 2 years. And that means that, they won't send you to jail, but, you are basically bound to the peace for 2 years. And if you were up in court for anything else, you can possibly trigger the reactivation of that sentence. So that's exactly what's happened here.
Yeah, so he's on a suspended sentence. This obviously occurs within that time frame, the correct time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's many driving offences that aren't criminal offences effectively. So if you get caught, speeding, for example, and you get penalty points, it's a road traffic offence.
Yeah.
But it's not a criminal offence.
No.
Now, obviously, there's far more serious charges that are criminal offences to do with driving. Obviously, dangerous driving causing death or any of those number of things.
Yeah.
So Kyle Hayes is being convicted of one of those that reaches that bar of being a criminal offence. Obviously, I think careless driving would be, is obviously a lesser charge. And even if he had been convicted of that, he probably wouldn't be at risk of going back to prison.
Yeah, careless driving can. So I was looking it up there, and basically a guard can find that you were carelessly driving, and you get an automatic penalty points in your license, and you get fined on the spot. Yeah. But you can't be brought to court for it. So it is still a criminal offence in that if he had been found, the judge had said, okay, I'll accept careless driving, but there's no prison sentence with that. Whereas dangerous driving, in the context of Kyle Hayes, he was found guilty of. It can lead to up to 6 months in prison. Now that wasn't considered by the judge, but I suppose he was banned for 2 years. There's an automatic ban on your driving if you're found guilty of dangerous driving. I don't think it's the same with careless driving. Yeah. And I suppose that's probably an issue for him as well. He's off the roads now for 2 years. He has a job. He's driving to training. He plays county. So, it's a more serious offence. And, the judge was quite strong in her comments, and the prosecuting guard was very strong on her comments of his behaviour. So all of that is going to go against him, really.
So who is Kyle Hayes? Because we haven't really, for you as a GAA super fan, obviously know who he is. But he is one of Ireland's best known hurlers, isn't he? Again, he's been another point of controversy was when he was up for hurler of the year in the awards, which was again people. Some people felt, or certainly some people on social media, saying he shouldn't be considered because of, I suppose, both of these court cases combined.
Yeah, so Kyle Hayes he's only 26, but he's been around GAA for a long time. He is considered one of the, one of the best GAA stars at the moment. Like, he's a defender, but he's won 5 All-Irelands with Limerick. Obviously, Limerick are a really successful team. They didn't win the last All-Ireland, but they have been very successful within the last several years. And he was nominated for his 5th All-Star, I think, just before Christmas last year. And that's what you're talking about there, where there was a lot of people on social media. He won an All-Star. Now, as we've said before in the podcast, it's actually chosen by the media, by, columnists, GAA columnists and stuff, the panel. So,
you're not going to name and shame them, no?
No. I think they've written, there's actually been a few who from our stable, from the media house stable, who've written comments or written pieces which have been published on the Indo saying that, they're choosing it on their talents, that, they're only judging it based on his performances.
And look, that is a fair perspective, because by all accounts, he deserves to be there for his for what he's achieved on the field.
Yeah. So that did create controversy. And I suppose, like, as we said before, you were accusing me of defending him, but like the violent disorder conviction, there was a guy, Kyle Hayes wasn't found guilty of assault, but he was assaulted as part of that whole night, a victim, and his mother was on live line talking about the horrific injuries and the trauma. So, that's not excusable, but I suppose he was very young when it happened, and do people they serve their time and they have a chance to move on, but what you can't really excuse is the dangerous driving thing while all this is going on, and then he gets nominated for an All-Star. So it did create controversy, and it was people were calling into Joe Duffy as well, giving out.
And of course I didn't accuse it. I gently prodded the information out of you for the sake of it.
That's your method of attack, though, just gentle prodding and then when someone else explodes.
However, we'll move on and agree to disagree.
Okay.
So I mean, the point of suspended sentences is that, as you said, a judge will give somebody a chance and say, well, look, this is a mistake, or you were, something happened on a night out, or you lost your head, so I'm going to suspend your sentence. But the cost of that then is that you have to avoid coming before the courts for whatever period of time. I mean, that literally is the purpose of suspended sentences, is that you get another chance, but there's consequences if you break it. Now, Kyle Hayes obviously has broken it in that he's received another conviction in court. So what happens next? Like, is that, it's not an automatic thing?
No, it's not. It's consideration for it. So basically his usually as soon as you're convicted of another offence, you're back up. It's called the Section 99 is triggered, and the judge, so the court, it was Limerick Circuit Court, I think, so the court where the original conviction was processed has to consider it. So the judge, it came back up before a judge, and they said, well, there's appeal going on here, so we'll come back to it. I think they put it back to March. Now that appeal has been heard, but it was put back a couple of times. So basically what happens is it will come back before. He was convicted of the dangerous driving offence in Cork, Mallow District Court in Cork. So that was dealt with there, but this one has to go to a Limerick court, and they can either suspend, they can reactivate part of it, or they can reactivate the whole thing. So I would be, like, obviously we're not legal experts, but, just given the controversy, the stuff that was said in court, his behaviour around it as well, like, the Garda who prosecuted him claimed that he said, I thought the speed limit was 160 kilometres, which he denied, but he was driving 55 kilometres over the actual speed limit. The judge actually said, fair enough, some people can accidentally and go 10, 20 kilometres. So, you put your foot down, you don't realise. But, that's just too excessive. And then he said to the female Garda, who has 15 years experience policing roads, I want to speak to someone more senior than you. So things like that as well were mentioned in court. So, obviously that's done now. That case, the appeal is gone. So we'll see the Limerick one. We don't have a date for it, but basically the judge will consider it. And maybe they'll take time and they'll bring it back again.
So, I mean, they obviously certainly have discretion there still, obviously. Presumably they can not activate it at all or anything like that as well, but they can partially do it or fully do it. Yeah,
they can, and they can partially do it or fully do it, or exactly. But I suppose it'll be up to the judge. But I guess, as they were saying, people think driving offences, like a lot of people get penalty points and all this kind of thing. But I guess the point that they were trying to make was that, like, he took it upon himself to think he was, he could overtake 9 cars. And
it was in a row as well, wasn't it?
It was in a row,
He didn't take them one after another.
No, it was in a row.
It just went straight.
exactly.
a road, which is obviously, you know, that obviously is probably why it's the dangerous driving.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never seen that before. Like, I've seen mad things in the roads, as we all have, but I've never seen that. But yeah, you know, it's basically when you go down some motorways down the country, they give you like a overtaking lane for a certain amount of time. And he said he didn't see the signs, but it does tell you clearly it's going to merge now.
Yeah.
So he just kept going, and he said it wasn't he said it was careless, not dangerous, because I basically ran out of road, and he said I didn't want to cut in front of someone else, and that's why I kept going. So that was his excuse. But you know, I suppose it was also heard in court that there's been a lot of accidents on that road.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is like you could put someone's life in danger there. So,
and of course, if he was unlucky enough to end up in prison, he would probably go to Limerick prison, where he does have at least, well, he'll know at least 2 people, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so his 2 brothers are in prison at the moment. Cian and Dara Hayes were found guilty of assault causing harm to Kieran Ryan, who was a former friend of theirs. They basically battered him with like loads of different implements and caused extreme. He was actually told, his mother was told in hospital it'd be 50-50 if he'd survived. So they were given sentences of between 2 and 3 years, the 2 of them. So they're currently in jail for that. And obviously, you know, that was also a subject that Kyle Hayes was brought up in that case as well. Obviously had nothing to do with it, but you know, he's the more famous family member there, and you know, they all play GAA, but Kyle Hayes is a standout star, so his name was linked to that too. But yeah, they are currently serving prison sentences for that.
Yeah. So, well, I suppose I don't know if that's a comfort or discomfort for him, but
I don't know. I can't imagine there's any comfort in it.
No,
like he was really sort of, I suppose, fighting to keep it out.
Yeah.
To keep himself out of prison. And who knows, like, I suppose we haven't really seen it with, you know, we see it really serious offences, but you know, and have you seen a driving offence causing someone to go to prison?
Well, I suppose people do go to prison for driving offences. So what we don't actually see or don't get covered a lot is the activation of suspended sentences.
Well, this is what I mean, like the activation for something like driving offence. Now, it is a serious driving offence.
But in general, those hearings aren't automatically covered. Even I don't even know where they will be on the court's list that goes up online. You rarely see it, and I suppose it is true that we're covering this because of his high profile nature. But yeah, it's how they activate it. There's always in an Irish court, a judge has a degree of wiggle room, and certainly down in the rural courts, you know, sometimes they can be different depending on where they are. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one, and certainly there's a lot at stake for Kyle Hayes. So we'll definitely come back and cover it then, and we get you back into. Yeah,
we'll get you to watch a hurler match, a Limerick hurler match,
right?
And then we'll be.
Yeah, exactly.
just for research.
Stick fighting, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thanks. What's that? Thanks, Eimear. You'll have to.
Did you say thanks, Nick?
I did.
My God! Do you put that in, Nasty? Because it just shows how little you think.
Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.